Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your GitHub account repository with nothing but your terminal. Okay. What I have in front of me is the integrated terminal of Microsoft VS Code. So first thing we need is a package manager. Okay. So we will be installing some packages to get this setup done. Because I'm currently on Mac, I will be using Homebrew. So I'm using 4.5.2. So that's the version of Homebrew I'm installing. If you're on a Windows machine, you can use a package manager like Chocolatey or Scoop. So the first package that I'm going to be installing is Git to get all the Git operations recognized in my terminal. It says that it's already installed because I already have it set up. If you're installing Git for the first time, it might take a little longer for the download process to get through. One thing that I typically like to do after I've installed a package is check the version. Okay, because it does two things for me. One thing is that it lets me know what version of package I'm using, and it can be really handy if I ever need to go to the documentation or if I need to open a ticket. I will always remember what package version I'm using, because sometimes the way in which things are done, sometimes the functions they can get deprecated. Okay, as you upgrade to a different version, so it's always a good idea to know what version of package you're using. We need one more package, which is GH, which is the GitHub command line interface package. And we're installing this package for a very specific reason. When we are going to create a repo, sometimes I've seen in other tutorials that like people often have to leave the terminal, go to the GitHub website and use those tools to create the repo, like using that interface, and then basically take that link and bring it back to the terminal. Personally, I don't think it's necessary to leave the terminal at all. You can do it everything inside the terminal, but for that you would need the GitHub command line interface package. Okay, so I also have the GitHub command line interface package installed. So now that we have the two packages installed properly, we can get to the next step, which is doing some initial configuration. Now, why are we doing this? Uh, let's remind ourselves what GitHub is about. GitHub is about version control, for doing code review, for working in a collaborative environment. And when we say collaborative environment, we say that there's going to be multiple people working on the same project at a given time, right? And then there are going to be people making commits from different machines. Whenever you're making commits, if you ever want to see who has made that commit, you can always get information through the metadata. And because we want to say that anytime I make a commit through this local machine, it's going to be me who's making those commits, I would have to do some configuration so that that information is going to be there in the commit that I make. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say git config global user.email. Okay, and then uh, git config global user.name. Okay, sorry. Um, and then I can do git config list just to check that my username and email is now configured properly. That's great. Okay. Now, anytime I make a commit, that is what the information that's going to be in the commits. Now, what we want to do is we want to basically add a folder, put some files there perhaps. Okay, so let's do that. Let's create a directory. Let's create a folder. Let's call it GitHub tutorials because that seems appropriate. We have nothing inside there in the moment. Let's go inside the GitHub folder. There's nothing inside. Now what we can do is we can put a file there. Okay, so let's say setting up my GitHub. Let's put that in a file called new file.txt. We can always see what we have inside the new file.txt, and it's the sentence that we have added. Great. Now there is currently nothing special about this folder, because if we just even do a list all, and if you want to see that what content do we have here, there's going to be nothing special about it. It's just a simple working directory, right? Now the way we can make it special is by doing a git init. Okay, now if I do a git init, now something has changed. Now we have just turned this ordinary folder into a special folder. And how do we understand that? Besides this color giveaway, it has changed color if you have noticed. But besides that, what you're going to realize is that if I now do a list all, you're going to see that it now has a hidden file there. And that's called .git. And that .git file is a hidden file that is responsible for keeping track of all the changes that you make here. And that is what makes this directory special now, right? So that's awesome. Now what we want to do is we want to understand what is the typical workflow of GitHub, okay? And for that, I have a diagram over here. So we are at the moment, we are in the working tree. We are in the working directory, right? If we want to take all the additions, anytime we make any changes, if you want to take that addition, if you want to move it to the staging area, we will have to perform a git add, right? From the staging area, we can keep on adding stuff to the staging area. And then once we're happy with all the additions, we can do a git commit. And that takes all the additions from the staging area to the local branch. And that would be basically the final step before we can sort of push, meaning, in other words, we can upload all the changes to our remote branch, right? Which is going to be the cloud repo that we have. So let's do that. We are going to add the stuff. So currently we just have the new file.txt that we are going to be adding. Okay, so I can say git add, and you can basically name the specific file that you want to add, and you can keep on doing that. Or you can say git add dot, meaning you want to add all the all the files, all the changes, everything, uh, and take that to the staging area. So I'm going to do that. And now we have basically added everything to the staging area. Now what we can do is we can do a commit. Okay, I can say commit, and then m flag is the message flag. So I've added a message here, and I said that I've added a new file, right? So anytime if anyone wants to see in my repo the commit that I've made, they can get this small little note, which is a good way. It's a good practice to keep track of all the commits. What addition, what change have you made here? And that's a good note. You can say, and that would sort of let you know what the commit is about. So I've just added a commit, and now I'm all ready, right? I'm about to upload, I'm about to push the elements. But hold on a second, we have not yet established a connection between our local machine and our remote repository, right? So there's a whole lot of things that needs to be done before we can do that. Like, how does your terminal recognize your remote repository that you have going on, right? So for that, we will be using the package that we install at the very beginning of this tutorial, which is the GitHub command line interface, right? We don't have to leave the terminal. So what we can do is we can, using the GitHub command line interface, which is the GH package, we can do a authorization login. Okay, and it says, where do you use GitHub? GitHub.com. What is your preferred protocol for Git operations on this host? You can either go for HTTPS. I personally prefer the secure shell SSH. Uh, where to upload? You can keep it as default. And title for your SSH key, I can say MacBook Air and my name. How would you like to authenticate GitHub command line interface? I can say login with a web browser, and it just generated a one-time code. So I'm gonna just like bring it over here. And then I'm gonna do a device activation, and it's asking me for that one-time code. I can say F6D3 DB4A. Okay. And then I can authorize, and it says congratulations, you're all set. That means that the connection has been established. Now that's awesome. So now we are actually ready to create the repo. Okay, so what we can do is we can say gh repo create, and we can say GitHub tutorials. So that's what the name of the repo that we want to create. We want to make this repo public. Okay, that's awesome. For the source, we can say dot, meaning it's the current directory. And for the remote, we are going to name it origin. Origin is the default name given to your remote repository that's on the cloud. And what action would we like to perform? We would like to perform a push operation. A push operation is another way of saying upload. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So it's going to create a repo called GitHub tutorial, and it's going to push all the commits because I already have a commit there, and it says push commits. So now only thing that we have left to do is just go to our github.com and see if the repo has been successfully created. And we can see here that this did create a repository called GitHub tutorials. And if we go inside this repo, we can see that it does have the file that we just put there, the new file.txt. And you can see the commit message here as well. If you go inside this, you can see the sentence that we had in the file. That's awesome. Now, what we can also do here is we can Also, if you are not happy with this repo, because let's be honest, it's just it's not complete repo. You should be adding a lot of stuff there. Let's say I'm not happy with this. I just want to go ahead and do a delete. Okay, so I can delete this repo. It's asking me to type my this thing again. And wait, something just happened, which says that HTTP 403 must have admin rights to repository. I'm glad this happened, because sometimes what happens is like it forgets your authorization, so you have to perform a authorization refresh. Okay, so we can do that. We can say gh authorization refresh, and then we can say host. Okay, so H is for host, and that's github.com. And then with the S flag, what we are doing is we're saying that we would like to grant the delete repo scope, right? So it's asking me to enter this one-time code again, so I can do that. Exactly similar to what we just did before. So we're gonna do a device activation, and we can enter the one-time code. Okay, and then authorize GitHub, and it says congratulations, you're all set. Okay. So authentication complete. So now we can go ahead and do the deep delete again, and I can say GitHub tutorials, and it says deleted repository. So if I want to quickly check if it has successfully deleted this repo again, I can go here and come to the repo, and you can see that that repo is now gone. So that's a way we can basically do the initial setup with nothing but your terminal. After the initial setup is done, obviously you can perform different kinds of Git operations on your project and do some really amazing things with it. But that's all for this video. See you next time. Bye bye.